December 1944, the Reich is burning from within. Allied bombers from the skies of London and New York City fuel the factories that now outproduce Germany at every turn. Oil fields in Romania are gone, synthetic fuel plants lie shattered. And yet, inside the Wolf's lair, Adolf Hitler prepares one last roll of the dice, a winter offensive through the Ardennes that will split the Allied armies and seize the port of Antwerp. If it works, it could fracture the Western Alliance. If it fails, it will consume what little Germany has left. And buried inside the plan is a flaw so obvious it feels almost surreal. The operation is named the Battle of the Bulge. On paper, it is bold. German armor will smash through thinly held American lines in the Ardennes forest, cross the Meuse River, and capture Antwerp. But Peiper does not burn fuel. Germany does not have enough gasoline to sustain the thrust. The spearhead must capture Allied depots intact to survive. It is not advancing on supply, it is advancing on hope. At the tip of that spear stands 29-year-old Joachim Peiper, commander of Kampfgruppe Peiper, drawn from the elite 1st SS Panzer Division. His column includes Panther tanks and the fearsome King Tigers, machines of immense firepower and equally immense appetite. Each mile devours fuel, each delay costs momentum. His orders are simple: drive west at maximum speed, seize bridges, capture fuel, and do not stop. At 5:30 a.m. on December 16, 1944, the forest explodes. German artillery shatters the dawn. American units, including elements of the 99th Infantry Division, are stunned but not destroyed. Snow falls softly over chaos, yet Peiper does not move. His armor is trapped behind infantry units stalled on a single narrow road. Roll-on-D vehicles clog the route. Engines idle, precious gasoline evaporates into the frozen air. Before he even sees the enemy, Peiper is fighting congestion, delay, and arithmetic, and every wasted minute tightens a clock he cannot see ticking. When he finally advances, the offensive is already behind schedule. Surprise has bought him space, but not time. Villages in eastern Belgium fall quickly. American outposts are overrun. The speed is intoxicating. But logistics is not impressed by speed. It is indifferent, mechanical, merciless. Peiper's fuel gauges dip steadily toward empty. The Meuse is still far away. German planners had calculated that captured American fuel would sustain the thrust. But calculations do not account for resistance stiffened by desperation. Nor do they account for destroyed bridges, burning depots, or roads too narrow for heavy armor to maneuver freely. The deeper Peiper pushes, the thinner his margin becomes. His column stretches like a wire pulled too tight, vulnerable to snapping at any point. And yet, in those first hours, the illusion of invincibility holds. Panthers roll past stunned defenders. King Tigers grind forward like steel fortresses. Snow absorbs the thunder of tracks. For a moment, it appears that Hitler's gamble might work. That audacity might compensate for scarcity. But somewhere ahead, American engineers prepare demolition charges. Somewhere behind, Allied commanders begin to grasp the scale of the penetration. And somewhere within Peiper's own column, fuel trucks calculate distances they may not survive. The armored spearhead of Nazi Germany is moving west. But it is already outrunning the one thing it cannot fight without. If you're drawn to these stories where history turns not on heroics, but on fragile decisions and fatal miscalculations, consider subscribing and liking the video. It helps more people discover these deeper truths, the moments where wars are decided not by glory, but by logistics. Because what lies ahead is not simply a clash of tanks, it is a race against inevitability. When Peiper finally breaks free of the traffic jam strangling Roll-on-D, he drives west with ruthless urgency. Belgian villages blur past in white silence. American artillery positions are overrun before they can fully deploy. Confusion spreads through Allied lines as reports flood headquarters. German armor is deep behind the front. For a brief, electrifying window, it seems the gamble conceived by Adolf Hitler might actually fracture the Western Front. And yet, even in these moments of momentum, Something unseen is already working against him. At Bulge, Peiper's men capture a critical prize, approximately 50,000 gallons of American gasoline. It is a windfall, but only in appearance. King Tigers consume fuel at a staggering rate. Panthers are hardly economical. 50,000 gallons sounds immense. In reality, it is a fraction of what an armored thrust toward the Muse requires. The column refuels quickly, engines roar back to life. For a moment, the illusion of sustainability returns. Meanwhile, Allied command begins to grasp the scale of the penetration. Maps in American headquarters show a dangerous bulge forming in the lines, the shape that will give the battle its name, the Battle of the Bulge. Panic flickers through rear echelon units. Supply convoys reverse direction, bridges are flagged for demolition. And then a quiet but devastating order spreads through the chain of command: burn the fuel. If the German spearhead survives on captured supplies, deny it the meal. On December 17th, near the crossroads outside Malmedy, events take a darker turn. After capturing American soldiers who have surrendered, elements of Peiper's column open fire. 84 prisoners are killed in what becomes known as the Malmedy Massacre. News of the atrocity spreads rapidly across American ranks. Fear hardens into fury. Units that might have withdrawn now dig in. Artillery crews fire with personal resolve. The psychological impact is immediate, and it changes the texture of the battle in ways Peiper cannot afford. Tactically, he continues west. Strategically, resistance is thickening like ice forming over a river. American engineers dynamite bridges ahead of his approach. Road networks narrow. Snow deepens. Every destroyed crossing forces detours that burn additional fuel. Every mile gained costs more than the last. The offensive is still moving, but it is beginning to strain. Behind him, Allied forces begin sealing the corridor. Stavelet is contested. Supply lines thin further. The deeper Peiper pushes, the more isolated he becomes. His column stretches through forest roads like a vein exposed to pressure. And now, American forces understand exactly what to target, not merely tanks, but gasoline trucks. To the north lies Francorchamps, holding millions of gallons of precious fuel. If seized intact, it could breathe life into the German advance. But American forces ignite vast stores before withdrawal. Flames rise into the winter sky, visible for miles. It is not simply a tactical denial, it is a strategic suffocation. The very air seems to mock the advancing armor. Peiper presses towards Dumont. It will mark the deepest penetration of the German offensive. But fog settles into the narrow streets. Heavy King Tigers cannot maneuver freely. When the lead tank is disabled, the column stalls, steel frozen in place. American counterattacks intensify, artillery pounds the approaches. What once felt like a spear now feels like a trapped blade wedged too deep to withdraw. Reports filter back, bridges destroyed. Fuel diminishing, American forces regrouping behind him. The gamble was built on speed, but speed without sustainment is momentum without endurance. The question is no longer whether Peiper can reach Antwerp. It is whether he can even reach the Meuse, and somewhere in the frozen Ardennes, engineers are already wiring the next bridge for demolition. December 18, 1944, snow drifts across the Ardennes as Peiper's column reaches Stavelet. Against the odds, the bridge there is captured intact, a rare stroke of operational fortune. For a fleeting moment, it feels like destiny bending in his favor. Steel tracks thunder across the span, engines rumble westward. If momentum can be restored, perhaps the Meuse is still within reach, and yet, just beyond the next turn in the road, the illusion of possibility is about to shatter. Allied engineers have anticipated this thrust. Across the Amblève and Somme rivers, demolition charges wait in silence. At Toipons, Peiper's lead elements approach another vital crossing. Then the sky erupts, explosions rip through the bridge in a storm of timber and stone. The road west collapses into the river below. Smoke billows upward, swallowing the horizon. The shortest path to the Meuse vanishes in seconds. The map that once promised progress now offers only detours, and detours cost fuel. Peiper turns northward, searching for alternatives. But alternatives are narrow, winding roads never designed for heavy armor. Each King Tiger weighs nearly 70 tons. Every incline drains more gasoline. Every stalled maneuver exposes the column to artillery fire. The forests that once concealed his advance now constrict it. What was meant to be a breakthrough begins to resemble entrapment. To the north lies salvation, the massive Allied fuel reserve at Francorchamps. Nearly 2.5 million gallons sit there, enough to resurrect the offensive. But American forces ignite vast stores before German armor can reach them. Flames tower into the winter sky, creating a literal wall of fire between Peiper and survival. Black smoke coils upward like a signal flare announcing the collapse of the gamble, and with that fire, the arithmetic becomes merciless. He pivots toward Stoumont. This small Belgian village becomes the furthest reach of his advance. In fog-choked streets, Panthers and King Tigers struggle to maneuver. American anti-tank guns wait at intersections. When the lead tank is knocked out, the column freezes behind it, still unable to pivot in narrow lanes. Snow and smoke blur visibility, artillery shells fall with methodical precision. Speed, once his greatest weapon, is gone. Behind him, American forces retake Stavelot. The corridor narrows, supply routes vanish. What began as a spearhead now resembles a pocket. Fuel trucks are nearly empty, ammunition runs thin. Engines idle less frequently, not for silence, but for conservation. Peiper fortifies the village of Logistical, transforming it into a temporary stronghold. Inside shattered buildings, German soldiers brace for bombardment. Civilians huddle in cellars. American prisoners are guarded in basements as artillery rains down. The armored spearhead of Nazi Germany, the pride of the 1st SS Panzer Division, has become a stranded fortress. No dramatic tank duel will decide its fate. No sweeping maneuver will break the encirclement. Instead, the enemy closing in is time, distance, and simple physics. Heavy armor without fuel is not a weapon, it is weight. As days pass, the strategic reality becomes undeniable. Germany cannot replace what is being spent here. Allied industry dwarfs the Reich's shattered production. Every disabled King Tiger is not merely a loss, it is an irrecoverable subtraction from a shrinking arsenal. The offensive across the Ardennes, once envisioned as a decisive stroke, is bleeding strength into frozen ground. If you value historical narratives that uncover the hidden mechanics behind dramatic events, where bridges and fuel depots matter as much as battlefield courage, consider subscribing and liking the video. It helps more viewers discover these deeper layers of history, where wars are decided not just by bullets, but by supply lines. Because in Logistical, surrounded and nearly dry, Peiper faces a decision that will define the end of his command. Stay with me. December 23, 1944, snow falls over Logistical in a quiet that feels almost indifferent. Inside the shattered village, radios crackle with static as Joachim Peiper sends a final request up the chain of command, permission to abandon the armor and to break out on foot. The reply, when it comes, is simple: approved. The most powerful armored spearhead in the German army will leave its machines behind, and in that single decision, the offensive effectively dies. Throughout the night, demolition charges are placed inside Panthers and King Tigers. Crews disable optics, smash gun mechanisms, ignite engines where possible. 135 vehicles, tanks, half-tracks, self-propelled guns are sabotaged and left in the snow. Among them are 6 King Tigers, nearly 4% of Germany's heavy tank strength deployed to the Western Front. These are not symbolic losses. Germany's bombed factories cannot replace them. The arithmetic of scarcity tightens again. At 2 a.m., roughly 800 men slip silently from Logistical into the frozen forest. They carry what ammunition they can, the rest is abandoned. Snow muffles their movement as they navigate toward German lines. No headlights, no engines, no armor. The force that began this campaign with thunder now moves like a shadow through the trees. The march is brutal, temperatures bite through boots soaked from river crossings. Men wade the icy Somme River in darkness, water rising to their waists, frost clings to uniforms. The force that once shielded their advance now tests their endurance. Behind them, the hulks of King Tigers sit motionless in drifts, monuments to an offensive that outran its own logistics, and ahead of them lies no triumph, only survival. By Christmas morning, survivors reach German lines near Rouen. Of the roughly 4,800 men who entered the Ardennes under Peiper's command, only about 800 return. No tanks, no armored column, no momentum. The gamble conceived by Adolf Hitler has collapsed into exhaustion. The broader Battle of the Bulge will continue into January, but its decisive thrust has already failed. Germany has spent men, machines, and irreplaceable fuel, and gained nothing that alters the war's trajectory. In the months that follow, Allied forces push relentlessly east. German industry, battered by bombing and starved of oil, cannot recover. The Ardennes offensive becomes a final hemorrhage rather than a turning point. What was intended to split the Western Alliance instead solidifies it. American resolve, hardened by events like the Malmedy Massacre, does not fracture, it intensifies. After the war, Peiper is tried for war crimes connected to Malmedy. Sentenced to death, his punishment is later commuted amid controversy. He is released after serving 11 years. Decades later, in 1976, he dies in a fire at his home in France, a life that began in ideological fervor and ended in isolation. Today, a surviving King Tiger stands at La Glace, preserved as a relic. It does not symbolize annihilation in battle. It represents something quieter and more decisive: depletion. The armored spearhead did not perish in a climactic duel. It stalled on destroyed bridges, it suffocated in burning fuel depots. It froze in narrow streets where weight overcame maneuver. The lesson is not merely about Peiper, nor solely about the Ardennes. It is about the limits of force divorced from supply, about ambition and tethered from arithmetic, about how even the most formidable machines cannot outrun empty fuel tanks. And in that winter of 1944, destiny was not written in gunfire, it was written on a map.